on the trans attack. One, obviously, it was a very effective ad that they unleashed. You know the one, like she's for they, them, he's for you. I ultimately do not believe it was about the issue of trans. I think it made her seem out of touch. And it was sort of a pseudo-economic ad underneath it too, because he was saying you're going to pay for it with taxpayer money. And it was in her own words, and that's something. But we tested a ton of responses to this, and none of them ever tested as well as basically her talking about what she would do, like for the American public on the economy, et cetera. The trans ad, Team Red, meaning Trump and all of his super PACs, they spent this money on it. Trump spent 37% of his money on this trans ad. But Trump wasn't the only spender. We were getting hit across the board by it. They spent a lot of time talking about this. He says, and it's easy to say with the kind of resources that we raised, we should have been able to do everything, but that's not the case. You have to make decisions. We had to choose, he's saying, between messaging on the economy and what she would do, defining Trump as Hitler, and trying to run defense on some of the most effective messaging Trump was unleashing. We had to choose, and we chose to focus more of our attention on one, driving down Trump, and that was incredibly important that we did, as well as on defining her. So if we spent this entire race, and not to be defensive about it, but if we spent this entire race pushing back on immigration attacks or crime attacks or on trans attacks, at what point are we bringing Trump down? All of our testing told us that the approach we were taking of her being more positive and talking about the economy and what she would do was a better tactic in response to that trans assault. You were wrong. Your testing was wrong. You should have listened to someone else like me or anybody right of center who was telling you in many ways and forms that this actually was a big issue and that voters did care, including Democrat voters, which you chose to find out the hard way, Quentin. Now will you listen? Doesn't look like it. Jen O'Malley Dillon, if we looked at this a lot, and she points out she never got directly asked about it. Oh, we know, Jen. We know. We waited for a single interviewer to raise this issue with her, and Brett Baer was the only person to do it. He raised the trans prisoners thing, did not get into boys playing in girls' sports, but he did raise that's it. And she was given a pass in every other interview. But it was obviously something we looked at responding to. And then they admit that they spent, David Plouffe chimes in, that they spent, he says, where is it? Maybe hundreds of hours on how to respond to that ad. Hundreds. So we took it very seriously, he says. But it wasn't something at the end of the day. It wasn't something. At the end of the day, what matters in an election is something causing someone to behave differently. And our sense was, in the battleground states, this was not driving vote behavior to the same extent as the economy was generally, or even immigration. He did not think this mattered. I think we have some of this on tape. Yeah, listen to David Plouffe on this.
And I would just add, Dan, so both campaigns, super PACs, there was a lot of national ads. So I think if you're sitting in California or Texas or Florida, you see this ad, you don't see any of our responses, right? So in the battleground states, her talking, in a very common sense way, in a very practical way, whether it be about immigration, whether it be about the economy, was our best defense because this was less about trans than it was about priorities and being out of the mainstream. So I think these voters in the battleground states, both through ads and through seeing her doing local interviews, and I think that's one of the reasons you had such a difference between the battleground states and the non-battleground states, is people knew her better, number one. Number two, as Jen said, it's very easy these days to understand who has experienced an ad. So we were feeding a lot of digital ads to people who might have saw that spot. But, at the end of the day, we were spending a lot of time with voters in these battleground states, both quantitatively and quantitatively. And this trans ad was not driving vote.
So let me tell you what he's doing there. Trans ad was not driving votes in the swing states. And in the swing states, we did respond to the ad. We just didn't waste money in states like New York and California. And therefore, we didn't do anything dumb or wrong, because even the Democrats have responded and said time and time again, why didn't you respond to that ad? which we all know did play a major role, and the trans issue in general. And this is him trying to say, oh, no, in the swing states we did. You just didn't see it. You media people in Washington, D.C. and New York, you people in California who are all Democrats and mad at us, you just didn't see it. You see, we neutralized this in the swing states, and the voters didn't care. This is amazing. This is just amazing to me. It wasn't a Republican group that did this survey. It was a Democratic group called Blueprint 2024. They didn't survey 200 people. They surveyed 3,200 people, 3,262 people, national and swing state voters, right after the vote, November 6th and 7th. And what they found, this is not Megyn Kelly, this is a Democrat group trying to figure out what went wrong, surveying 3,000 plus voters. The top issue for swing state voters was, and I quote, Kamala Harris is focused more on cultural issues like transgender issues rather than helping the middle class. She is focused more on cultural issues like transgender issues rather than helping the middle class. That was the number one issue for swing state voters, David. So you might want to reassess the trans ad was not driving the vote. Indeed, sir, the trans issue did drive the vote, and it drove your candidate right off a cliff. It's amazing how they just don't want to admit it. They can't admit it, I guess. Their identity politics are so part of their own identity as Democrats. They must hold on to it. Great, keep losing. Doesn't hurt me at all, but just FYI, you're completely misreading this. Completely. You saw what happened to Seth Moulton. We talked about this the other day. That Democrat from Massachusetts who signed all the bills and the legislative proposals that would crack down on any attempt to keep boys out of girls' sports, that would mandate allowing them in. He loves boys and girls' sports. Then after they lost, he came out and he said, I don't think it should be that I should have to worry about my girls' safety with boys coming into their sports, and I shouldn't be allowed to say anything about it. Now he's had so many people like try to cancel him and threaten him with a campaign against him and so on that he's backtracking. Now he said, I'm not saying that's how I feel, just saying we should have been able to talk about it. That's where the Democrat Party is right now. Even in the postmortem, you can't be honest about this issue. You guys should get used to losing because you're going to remain losers for a very long time. Okay, we go on. Oh, he did raise one point, which I thought was very interesting and true. He says, look, okay. If we could have just said, that's a lie, it's not anything she's ever believed, but she was on tape. Here, you kind of feel for him. Yeah, that's a tough one. Surgery for people who want to transition in prison was part of the Biden-Harris platform in 2020. It was part of what the administration did, right? We also saw Colin Allred, that was Ted Cruz's opponent in Texas, and Sherrod Brown in Ohio, both of whom ran good races, kind of directly responded to the trans attacks. And in our view, you're playing on your opponent's side of the field. So they chose not to do it. Okay, well, let's see how that goes. They had to try to disavow their earlier positions in order to have any hope in those races. Colin Allred just completely lied in his race about his position on that. We went into that with the audience. He did that to try to save his neck. The fact that it didn't work doesn't mean he shouldn't have disavowed it. Doesn't mean you shouldn't have disavowed it. The voters want to be told you disavow it. Some 66, 70% of the American public, at least, that's according to the Democrat polls, say they don't want boys and girls sports. I believe the number is much higher. And there's also a number in there that's just telling the pollsters what they think is politically correct. But those are not examples for you on why you shouldn't have tried to disavow it. Those are examples to you of the penalties of leaning in on this. And by the way, so's your candidate, Kamala Harris. The more you lean in, the more you're going to lose. Losers. That's what's going to happen there. Okay. Okay, then this is Quentin Fulks. I think that the trans ad is one of those. Okay, he says, if you look at how Trump was targeting it, it didn't move those voters he was targeting. But it did make our job of sort of trying to get in front of them and making us seem like we knew what they were going through and we were focused on their problems much more difficult. That's right, Quentin. And so that's how I sort of see it. So he's kind of onto it, right? Like those swing state voters saying, we think she cares more about trans voter issues and cultural issues like that than she does about inflation and things that actually matter to us. And then Quentin finishes with, but I don't think it was moving the vote. Wrong. So close. So close and yet no. Want a great gift for yourself this holiday season? I mean, that's how it goes, right? One for them, one for you. I want to tell you about the Genucel jawline treatment with dual peptide and MDL technology, Genucel's most advanced ever. The jawline treatment not only tightens a saggy jawline, but it plumps the layers of your skin to contour, define, and sculpt the jawline and neck area within minutes. And with the Genucel Immediate Effects product, you could see tightening in minutes, and the results get better every day. Just in time for Christmas and the holiday season, save over 70% off Genucel's complete skincare package featuring the jawline treatment and Genucel's Immediate Effects product. You will even get Genucel XV wrinkle treatment included. Go to Genucel.com/MK today and start looking years, even decades younger tomorrow. GENUCEL.com/MK. Genucel.com/MK. And as a special holiday gift, every package order includes a bonus beauty box with two skincare bestsellers. All orders automatically upgraded to free priority shipping. Genucel.com/MK. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.